All right, let me just make
We'll be
sure.
right with you. We're just going to move the computer where it's makes more sense.
The late service is the chill service. This is we're on our own time. We're no rush. Any case, Shabbat Shalom. I'm assuming the streaming is working. I'm gonna check it right now just to be sure. But if you're watching on the stream, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
Doing well. I'm with my parents finally.
Good.
They'll be joining too. They're just finishing dinner, but yeah.
That is absolutely a thing to celebrate. So
Absolutely. It was a long 9 months.
that is a long 9 months.
It is. How are you all doing?
Yeah, we're hanging in. We're hanging in, the temple as a whole is doing great, and it's just
I'm also tough on the groundbreaking.
yeah, that I still can't believe it, to be honest with you. It's one of those things where, like, as I was saying to somebody, the first piece of paper with this idea on it was 2008.
Wow.
And so, and I always say, it's like, if it's on paper in 2008, then it's got to really be earlier than that.
Yeah, that's.
And Julie Barbara can certainly speak to the the long-standing dreams and goals and hopes. That's it. Look, the only thing obviously that was hard and still is hard is because of COVID and because we started planning before, like, all the rules changed within like a week of the event itself.
Yeah.
But we couldn't have everybody there. So I will say is when it opens again, it's gonna be a party. Like, we're gonna do something special.
I think it'll be ready by then
and we're certainly gonna make sure that Julie and Barbara are down with us. That's gonna be key.
We were hoping we'd be ready by this year. We'd have our 5th wedding anniversary there.
I know. I was just gonna say, it has been 5 years. That's a big deal.
Well, 30 years, but 5 years from
5
you.
years, from my end. Obviously I'm selfish here because it only matters about my perspective, right? But obviously, the 5 years since that really seminal moment in the history of the temple, right? That was for lots of reasons was a very special thing, and I still am really very touched to have been a part of it.
Wonderful day that was.
Yeah, that was. Do your friends still have the house on?
Yeah.
That's also at a great spot.
Meryl and Andrew. Yep, they're still there.
That's good. Well, good Shabbos, everybody. So I know we're a little bit of a smaller crew this evening, and we don't know our friends who are watching perhaps on the stream. It's wonderful to see all of you. And I just came from Cormorant. A lot of our wonderful friends were there too, and it was good to see Keelan again. And I was just saying to Julie and Barbara that I don't want to promise anything, but I may have figured out a way for us to have one experience where we can stream a Zoom from there. So that way that would be the ideal.
Yeah.
It's just going to depend on Sister Ann and the longest length of Ethernet cord I can find. But
That would be
3 miles of cord.
exactly. It's look, if they could build the pyramids,
I'm
I think
sure
we
they
can figure out,
Right.
True values. Guy.
all right, so forgive me for muting all of my friends here other than Julie and Barbara, but we're going to spotlight you guys. And let me just put that on here, spotlight for everyone. So Julie and Barbara are going to light and bless our Shabbat candles on page 120.
Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'echad likneh shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you, Julie and Barbara. That was great. Okay, you can relax now and get you there. Make sure I got everything all here. And Shabbat Shalom, everybody. As you'll notice, I'm also Sans Cantor Lauren for the first time, and it feels like forever. The poor young woman finally gets a vacation of a week. We finally gave her a week off. We love her so much. We appreciate her so much. We just couldn't imagine a week without her, but she needs and deserves rest, and she finished her semester, and she passed all of her classes, and she's down in Texas with Aaron and her family, and it's a lovely thing. So Cantor Lauren, if by some strange chance you're watching this, stop watching and go relax. But if you are, we miss you, and we'll be excited to have her back next week for sure. But together we will do our very best without her. And we'll start on page 128 with Yedid Nefesh in the middle of the page. And she uses a different melody than I'm familiar with, so I'm going to try and see if I can remember it, and we'll go with that. If not, I'll go back to the old standard. Yedid Nefesh of Harachaman, Yedid Nefesh of Harachaman, Meshoch Avdecha, El Retzonecha, Yarutz Avdecha Kemoyam, Ishtachavel Mul Hadracha. I just made that up at the end because I lost the tune. So I'm going to go with maybe the Yedid Nefesh that I know a little bit differently. But now let's see if I can remember the melody. Yedid Nefesh Harachaman, Meshoach Avdecha, El Retzonecha, Yarutz Avdecha Kemoyam, Ishtachave El Mul Hadarecha, Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. And next week, when Lauren's actually here, I'll get her to really teach me the melody. It's all done for next week. But I still like the old one too. That's a good one. So we're going to begin Kabbalat Shabbat together now on page 130, very top of the page, Lechu Neranana. Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Ladonai. Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Lechu Neranana, Ladonai. Naria, Naria, Letzor Yishenu Nekadma Fana Betoda. Naria, Naria, Letzor Yishenu Bizmirot Naria Lo. Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena, Ladonai. Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena Ladonai. We're now on page 131, sorry, Shiru Ladonai. Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom, Yeshuato. Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom, Yeshuato. Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom, Yeshuato. Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom, Yeshuato. I'll turn now to page 132, or Zaru at the very bottom of the page. Or Zaru ala tzadik, uleishrei lev simcha. Or Zaru ala tzadik, uleishrei lev simcha. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Turn now to page 134, Zamru Ladonai. Zamru l'Adonai Bechinor. Bechinor vekol zimra. 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 We're now on page 135, Romemu, the last paragraph in Hebrew in the middle of the page. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehakodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehakodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehakodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehakodesho. We'll turn now to Lecha Dodi on page 138. And a reminder again, we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat lekabela. Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad ishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shemo tiferet v'litilam. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcham ki mekor haberacha ve'rosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Fifth paragraph. Hitoreri, ki ba'orech umiori, uri, shir dahaberi, kevod Adonai alaich niklam. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Bohi v'shalom ateret balam gam mesimcha u'betzola toch emunei ham segula. Bohi chala Lecha Dodi Lecha dodi likrat kalam, Penei Shabbat nekabelam. Lecha dodi likrat kalam, Penei Shabbat nekabelam. Julie, I could hear the drums from here. It was awesome. Just great. All right, we're on page 140, Tzadik Katamar in the Hebrew, where it indents in the middle of the page. Tzadik Katamar Yifrach Keres Bavanon Yizkem Shetulim Vebeit Adonai Vechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yenun Beseva Deshenim Merananim Yehu Lehagid Ki Ashar Adonai Tzurim Velo Avlatabo. We'll turn now to the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144. Yitkadal veyitkadash shemei Rabba Be'alma divrach yirutei ve'amlich malchutei B'chayechonu v'yamechonu chayedecho Beit Yisrael Ba'gala Ubizman kariv ve'imeru Amen. Yesh me Rabba mevarach le'alam le'ameh almaya yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitvar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'amav v'yimeru. Amen. Turn now to page 146 for the Baruch Hu. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. We'll turn now to page 148, and we'll read together in English at the bottom of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvelaila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, Echai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Amari v'arhabim. We're now on page 150. We'll read together in English in the middle of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, והם נגי יומם בלילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. We're now on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך וקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Let's read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. We're now on page 158. Yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yai bye ba 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 bye, yabai bye bim bam, yai bye ba 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 bye, yabai bye bim bam. Mi chamocha b'alim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norat hilotos sefele, norat hilotos sefele, yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam. Yai bye ba 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 bye, ya ba bye bye bim bam. Yai bye ba 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 bye, ya ba bye bye bim bam. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, bokeam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, u'golo miyad chazak mimenu, baruch ata Adonai, Gal Israel. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Ashkivenu, page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom ve'amidenu shomereinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom ve'amidenu shomereinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeiteinu, u'einu, lechaim u'shalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom ve'amidenu shomereinu lechaim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. Page 162. Veshameru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et et Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Hay beheni uvein bnei Yisrael oti leolam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz uvayom hashvi'im Shabbat vayinafash. In a moment, we'll begin the Amidah together on page 164, and as always, we'll continue silently from there and give space for each of us to pray in our own way, in our own time. But as always, we'll begin together, page 164. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'meru, amen. Our thoughts now turn to our loved ones and those in our community and those around the world who are in need of healing. And we'll turn to page 371 to offer our Misha Berach. And before I read our list for this evening, of course, we think of all of our brothers and sisters, our family and friends who are in Israel, and certainly thinking of really praying for that the ceasefire will hold and that all of the destruction and the death will cease. But in the meanwhile, we know that many are still hurting, both physically and emotionally. And so we are connecting ourselves, as always, to the East tonight. But also in our community, we're thinking of a number of people. And as I read this list, I'll invite you at home, if there's anybody that we don't mention that you'd like to mention, to simply add their names to the chat or hold them in your hearts. But tonight we are thinking of Francis Scavone, Dolores Michka, Sylvia Orn, Yerachmiel Ben Hinda, Paloma Chauhan, Samuel Moskowitz, Audrey Lubo, Chaim Leib, Robert Posner and Joyce Weinberg, Rick Gold, Stu Pollack, Jane London, Catherine Guarino, Emunah Chava, Raina Walsh, Deirdre Klein, Stephanie Skitt, Judy Stern, Miriam Cornfield, Roz Brody, Chana Ruth Batsara, Marlise Silverberg, Susan Spruce, Fagel Tzipora Bat Elisheva Batsara, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Adel Basha Bat Yitzchak, Tzvi Menachem Ben Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Amy and Gavin Tucker, Janice Kurz, David Dowling, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Ben Zion Ben Moshe, Lorraine Danis, Buddy Kosoff, Shelley Newmark, David Kyle Klopman, Rivka Bat Rachel, Sarah Bat Chana, Moshe Eliezer Ben Sivya, Peretz Ben Yehuda, and Leah Bat Naomi. And of course, we'll be adding and thinking of those that were mentioned in the chat and holding our loved ones in our hearts as we offer the Misha Berach together on page 371. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone. So, I was thinking tonight, especially as we had this first service in person, really since the pandemic began. And I know that it's not the experience for all of you that are watching it tonight, but as part of this wider community, it's still important to sort of acknowledge that we have reached a certain point in time where such a thing is even conceivable or possible. And we're going to work obviously as hard as we can to get ourselves, back to as close to normalcy as we can as a community, as a society. But in the meanwhile, it is important in Judaism to take stock of moments like this and to consider both the passage of time and what it means to us and what we are, in essence, both celebrating and also perhaps what we are still missing. So, of course, in preparing for this evening and thinking about all these kinds of ideas and themes, there's one bracha, one blessing that, of course, stands out. So I know you're not muted, you're muted at the moment, but you can mouth it. What blessing would we think of would encapsulate a moment like this? I see Sue Order, of course, said it right away. The Shechianu, okay, the Shechianu prayer, which is one of these prayers that is ubiquitous in a sense, right? Where it's used in so many different circumstances throughout the year that we begin to sort of think of it as a regular occurrence. And there is a certain kind of regularity to it, but I think we sometimes sort of misunderstand the purpose of the prayer and some of its wider applications. So first, I just wanted to share a little bit of its sort of identity and its background in that way. Because, again, sort of understanding that most blessings in Judaism have a very specific purpose and oftentimes a very narrow purpose, right? Borei Pri Hagafen, blessing the fruit of the vine, right? Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbat, right? Blessing the Shabbat candles. But there are other blessings that are much wider than that and apply in more circumstances. And the Shechianu actually has a number of circumstances in which it's applied, which may be sort of surprising. But let's start with the familiar. Okay, so the idea of the Shechianu in its essence is that it's generally a blessing that is said when you're experiencing something that occurs infrequently from which one derives pleasure or benefit. In other words, you wouldn't say the Shechianu every single day. It wouldn't make any sense. It would lose its meaning. Okay, but for things that do happen in a sort of periodic sense, it's important to stop, pause for a moment, and acknowledge the fact that that period has come and we are still here to observe it. Okay, so the prayer itself, Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh, Shechianu means really to sustain life, like the Chaim is in there, right? Shechianu, to create that sense of life. V'kiyamanu, to sustain somebody, to literally hold them up. V'kiyamanu, v'higianu, and to bring us to lazman hazeh, this present time. Okay, so whatever that present time is, it makes sense, but the benefit piece or the pleasure piece is not insignificant. So we wouldn't, for example, say the Shechianu for a periodic thing that happens that's important that's negative or sad. Okay, so I'll give a concrete example of that. We most often associate Shechianu formally with holidays. We say them at the beginning of holidays like Pesach and Shavuot and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Simchas Torah and Chanukah, but not something like Tisha B'Av, right? The holiday in which we commemorate the destruction of the temple, because it wouldn't make sense thematically to do that. It's also a prayer that we are supposed to say when we do the first mitzvah of something within a given year cycle. So for the first time that we put up the sukkah, the first time that we have a bite of matzah, right? Specific mitzvot that are done in the yearly cycle, the first time that we do them in a given year, we say this blessing as well. So here's the one that may be a different one for you, one that you're less familiar with. And this is one that it's really sort of lovely that of all things, I found this in a daf, a source sheet that was put together by our dear family friend, Rabbi Moshe Shur, who someday, God willing, I can bring out here because he's amazing. But he really put together this really wonderful teaching I wasn't actually so familiar with. So in Masechet Brachot, in the Talmud, in Babylonian Talmud, Brachot 58b, we learn from Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, and it says, one who sees his friend after an interval of 30 days says, which blessing do we think? Not rhetorical. Shechianu, okay? I can see you guys in the bit, right? You say the Shechianu. If you haven't seen a friend in 30 days, you say the Shechianu. And if you haven't seen a friend in over 12 months, you say a different prayer. That prayer is, Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hametim. Okay, now if that piques an ear, does anybody remember? I can't ask you so easily, right? This is the third blessing of the Amidah, which is not always done in Reform settings. For a long time, was taken out actually of the prayer book. In our case, right, we say it's what's referred to as Tchiyat HaMeitim. We're praying for the restoration of the dead to life. Okay, so think about it for a second. You don't see your friends for 12 months, and the bracha you're supposed to say is Baruch atah Adonai, right? Blessed are you, God, who resurrects the dead, is basically what the line is, right? So as I was sort of teaching this earlier, it's almost, you can almost hear the sort of the witty sarcasm of it to some degree, right? You know, see like two guys meet each other in a bar, haven't seen each other in a while. It's like, hey, look who rose from the dead, right? That whole kind of image here. But it's actually something rather kind of profound, because what it means, and I think all of us have felt this over the last year in a way maybe we've never felt before, of what it really means to not see with your own eyes, right? I'm looking at the warders together in a window right now for the first time in a year, right? You know, to see your loved ones, not just to see them, but to, you know, feel their hands, give them a hug, right? To feel their aliveness, right? It actually is really the appropriate kind of blessing, right? To say like, you know, here we are after having lived through this truly horrific and unique circumstance in our lifetime. And we the lucky ones are here, right? And we can say, right, we have made it to this time. We thank you, God, for getting us to this place. And we can appreciate the fact that what once seemed impossible, you know, 12 months ago, has resurrected itself to some degree, right? The possibilities of community, the possibilities of affection, the possibilities of the humanity that we miss when we are not together. And I think, you know, in essence, both of these prayers are really apt for a situation like this. But as I said earlier, it doesn't feel right to me to do Tchiyat HaMeitim as a blessing for seeing all of you guys, you know, on the Zoom tonight. But as I said, it's not just about who was there and who was here, right? It's about this congregation as a whole reaching this stage where we can even do this, we can even conceive of it. And it may take some of us a few more weeks before we get to see each other again, but we're going to get there. We know now that we're going to get there. So I thought that it really was an appropriate time for a Shechianu. It was an appropriate time to both acknowledge the joy and the celebration of really, feeling at least the beginning tastes of our community coming back together in the way in which, I think all of us miss quite terribly. It's also a Shechianu for reflection, right? To think about what we've achieved together over the last year by means of this remarkable technology that we are sitting in front of, right? And to realize that we could have broken apart, we could have splintered, we could have fallen between the cracks, and yet the exact opposite seems to have happened, right? That we have maintained those connections, and we have indeed, by the grace of God and by the grace of our hard work and dedication, okay, we have been given life, we have sustained our community and ourselves, and ultimately speaking, we have been brought to this moment, this beginning moment, certainly not the end, but this beginning moment where we can really celebrate. So I'll invite you guys at home to sing with me, and we'll sing the Shechianu with all of our affection and all of our hearts. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen, indeed. So we're going to turn now to page 586 at the very bottom, Aleinu L'Shabeach. Aleinu L'Shabeach Ladon HaKol Latet Gedula Liotzer Breshit Shelo Asanu Kegoye Ha'aratzot Velo Samanu Kemishbechot Adama Shelo Samchakenu Kahem Megor Aleinu Kechol Hamonaham Vanachnu Korim Umishtachavim Umodim Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're now on page 591. V'nehemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Now invite those in mourning and those observing yahrzeit, if you choose, to rise as we remember first those who have passed in our community in recent months. Miles Ambrose, Morris Dickstein, Fred Eber, Edwin Friedman, Sandra Furman, Evelyn Gelb, Lucy Gladstone, Lois Herr, Phyllis Katz, Jeanette Kopp, Madge Judith Parcher, Steve Popkin, Danielle Lisa Rigg, Geraldine Rosen, Paul Silver, Joan Strong Tengzilius, Virginia Tizer, Marjorie Weinberg Berman, Ann Weiss, and Estella Gass. We also marked the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Susan Davis, Henry Denker, Sadie Egelfeld, Mignon Fichtelberg, Francis Abrams Gerstmann, Moreno Harav, Rabbi Arthur Gilbert, Natalie Gleichenhaus, Irene Hanser, Arnold Jacoby, Louis Katz, Charlotte Kohlbrenner, Maurice Levy, Robert Liu, Herben Spitz, Samuel Teller, Faye White, and Susan Wolfson. And if there is anybody that we did not mention that's on our Zoom that wants to add names to the chat, and anyone who is watching on the stream, simply to say their loved ones' names aloud or to hold them in your hearts. And I'll invite the mourners to join me on page 598 as we recite the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi Shalom Rabba Min Shemaya B'Chaim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Mromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Zichronam Livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Okay, if you're still standing at home, you can be seated. And wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for being with me and coming on later on and being a part of this and being a part of this community. And I know it feels bifurcated at the moment, but it's not. Again, if there's one through line between the two experiences, it's me, and I can tell you, as I told them, we are really all part of one community. And I look forward to the day that we'll be back together again. And then in the not so distant future, be back together again in our shul, in our temple, and it's going to be a fantastic thing. But in the meanwhile, we've got a lot coming up, a lot going on. First, of course, is to invite anyone who'd like to stick on for a few minutes for our virtual Oneg Shabbat. And a reminder that Shabbat services will be live streamed tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And to please join us for Torah study beginning at noon. Also, the Women's Rosh Chodesh group will meet this Sunday at 4:30. Nida Mitzvah will meet on Monday at 11:30, which is the Hebrew School's last day of the year, 4 o'clock. Kind of sad about that. And the Social Justice Committee will have its regular meeting at 5 o'clock. My class on Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel and his book on the prophets will meet on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock. And a reminder that now at this point, we're taping every class. So even if you can't make it at noon, if you're interested, you still have to just register. So I know you're interested, and I'll send you the link every week. If you don't get it, please let me know. And B'nai Mitzvah will have its last class meeting on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. My other class, Journey to the Heart of the Siddur, on Fridays at 9, same principle, being recorded. Also, if you're interested in coming in the middle, at least since we started recording these, they're all available on YouTube. So if you're interested, just email me, let me know, and I'll send you all the links, and you can watch at your leisure while you're walking the dog, whatever it might be. We've been having some really good conversations. It's been great. Also to note, coming up, that Ruth Joseph's wonderful summer programming around her great book group begins on Sunday, May 30th. Also in June, we have a stand-up comedy of Stone and Stone, a virtual comedy show, really quite funny. Again, that is in June. Also a guided tour of the Longhouse Reserve out here in East Hampton, which is really an amazing place if you've never been. And even if you've been, always great to get a guided tour. Also a book talk with CNN's Don Lemon, which will be streamed live, which is really going to be an amazing night. That's been through the work of our Social Justice Committee. And also acknowledging and celebrating Gay Pride Month, we will invite guest speaker Chris Harrison, representing the Union for Reform Judaism, who will speak as well. All of those dates and times are in the June calendar, which I believe Eileen is sending off or has already sent off. And speaking of Eileen, she has got very rare times that she actually gets away. It's very hard, and she has a week of vacation. So we're going to give her all the space we possibly can to rest and recuperate from all of her hard work, especially over the last year, but especially in the last month. So if you don't need anything urgently from the office, this would be a good week to not bombard. But if you do need something, you come to me. We also have a wonderful man named Matt who comes in a few hours a day to cover for Eileen. So if there are any emergencies, anything like that, certainly call the temple line, call me, whatever you need. But if you don't need Eileen, please, let her enjoy her vacation. She definitely 100% has earned it. 200% has earned it. And as I said, again, a reminder, we'll join together for a brief Oneg Shabbat after services tonight. And especially when it comes to Friday night services, keep an eye out. As I said, we're sort of experimenting and changing things as we go a little bit, which is not usually our way. But as I said, my sort of ideal scenario is to somehow be able to merge and really have an outdoor service, but also have the Zoom component so that you guys are there and communicating. And so that way, no matter where you are in the world, we're still all in one place. I have a theory I can make it work. I won't make a promise, but if I can, you'll know about it before next week for sure. So with all of that, it's a lot of announcements. I'll invite us all to I think a closing song tonight, as simple as it is, that it seems quite appropriate to me, is praying for peace, and praying for peace to hold in particular in Israel. So a simple Oseh Shalom, simple and yet profound, I think would be a very appropriate end. Oseh Shalom Bimroma, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Yahase Shalom, Yahase Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yahase Shalom, Yahase Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'yimeru. Amen. Okay, if you have wine or grape juice handy, you're welcome to join me on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza b'anu v'shabbat kodsho v'yahavahu v'ratzon inchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני, וקדש Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim, to life. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom.